Welcome back to another reading and correcting with me, Kindar, the Tiger Writes, and Ty, the Tiger Supervisor. These are where I read a chapter from one of my stories and correct it as I go. If you want to listen to these live, it's every Tuesday morning, 8 a.m. on Twitch. And if you are looking to support me, that is on my Patreon. Today we are doing chapter 89 of Breaking Step. Tibs slashed up, and the guard deflected the blow with its shield, losing part of it to the sharpness the filigree of dew added to the metal edge. Wait, what? Losing part of it to the sharp to the sharpness the filigree of dew added to the edge gave it. Oh, yeah, that works. He jumped back instead of blocking the return in swing, having experienced how much strength they had even when they weren't overhead strikes. As soon as the guard's sword smashed into the ground, Tibs ducked, sensing Kamdar's swing in his direction. The impact staggered the grease-skinned golem person more, and any of more than any of Tibbs' strike did, more than he thought the cleric's strength allowed. He'd ask how that was later. Kamdar caught the other guard's sword on his staff, deflected it, and slammed the end into its face, cracking it and leaving wisps of darkness behind. Tibbs spun on a leg before standing and swung at the guard, trying to take advantage of the cleric's turned back. It wasn't as armored, going for speed over strength, and the tip of Tibbs' sword left water in the cuts. The golem didn't seem aware of either the damage or the water. Another reminder that as much as they looked like a form of people, they weren't. When enough crisscrossed its chest, Tibbs sent the etching he'd held at the ready, and once it hit, the water turned to ice, spreading. It continued attacking, also seemingly unaware of that, and Tibbs kept blocking and striking, adding more cuts and more water that immediately iced. When it reached a shoulder, the arm no longer moved properly, but the golem's attacked as if it was fine. The elbow and wrist, the elbow, wrist, and hand, the elbow, wrist, and hand, moving but unable to come close to Tibs. Another cut and ice spread to a leg, and the golem's attempt to take a step forward resulted in a limp that let Tibs inflict a long cut on the other leg. Then, turning to help Komdar, confident this golem wouldn't be a problem. The cleric had kept the two guards from landing blows and had managed a few of his own by the added darkness on them, but more were joining. Tibs suffused himself with earth and barreled through the newcomers, and the pain in his side as a tooth-lined sword bit into it was yet another reminder that Stoke kept in mind the elements Tibs was immune to. He blocked the next strike and left shallow cuts on their armor. The spreading ice broke as they moved, letting him know how it letting him showing showing it couldn't reach their body. But it impeded them sufficiently. He was able to dispatch them. He turned to help Komdar in time to see the cleric smile and do a pulling motion that felt theatrical, but resulted in shadowed version of the two people golem leaving the bodies, then them crumbling as he absorbed the darkness. "You're teaching me that one," Tip said, and Komdar responded with one of his amused, enigmatic smile. "Okay," Tickle said, resting against a wall. "Other than taking too long, this was fun." "The dungeons found ways of making the golem people more resistant to fire," Mez said. "And corruption," Don added, wincing as he stretched. "He's forcing us to think of new ways to fight," Tib said, heading for the sorcerer. He was cut and had one break in his side. "I thought you were going to keep back." He applied a weave, keeping his sense on the approaching form. It was moving slowly, so he had time. The sorcerer sighed in relief. The dungeon is adapting to that too. One of them threw a mace at me. Tibs raised an eyebrow. It was made of something that resisted my corruption enough to do this. Jekyll made a fist, grinning. This always works for me. We're not all as thick-headed as for we're not all too thick-headed for our own good, Don replied with some bitterness. He's thick everywhere, Mez said. That's why nothing the dungeon throws at him hurts. I am just that awesome. That's not the word I'd use, Don muttered, which is why I'm the one using it. There's nothing the dungeon can do that will. The growl reverberated around them, and Tibs smiled, wondering if Stowe knew Jekyll well enough to have expected the statement and timed the response. You do love getting the dungeon to prove you wrong, don't you? Don asked, chuckling while Jackal looked around fearfully. The sounds seemed to come from all around them. It's here. It's there. Tibs stepped toward the dark alley between two houses. Tibs, Jekyll warned, if that's where it is, how about we head in the other direction? He stood a dozen paces from the mouth of the alley and crouched, extending a head. The head became visible, slightly higher than Tibbs's at the moment. Abyss, Jekyll exclaimed. Tibs, move away. The dog's growl intensified, its head locking onto the fighter, and it stepped fully into the light, and Jekyll yelped, stepping back. It was big, Tibbs had to admit. If he stood, its shoulder would reach his stomach, and it had to mass as much as he did, at least. It was beautiful, with its black fur shimmering copper. He wondered if he could bring it out for Serba. Here, boy, he said, reaching into his pouch. The dog's attention snapped to him, and it bared its teeth. Are you hungry? He pulled the jerky out. The growl broke with a whine as it tilted its head. Tibs, Jekyll warned. I guess he doesn't feed you much, does he? Here, take it. It sniffed the air, then took a tentative step forward. Is it listening to him? Mez asked in dismay. It's okay, Tibs said. I'm not going to hurt you. It took another slow step. Tibs, you won't be able to. It stopped and growled at the fighter. Okay, I'm staying out of it. So, Don mused, all dogs hate Jackal and love Tibs? It sniffed again and took another hesitating step. This is such a bad idea, Jekyll whispered. With the next step, its nose touched a chunk of jerky and it sneezed, then looked at him with worry. Tibs didn't move, and it leaned forward and closed its teeth on it. When it pulled, Tibs kept hold of it. The whine escaped as it looked at him. Stay, Tibs said, trying to match Serba's less angry way of ordering her dogs. He let go, and the dog continued watching him. It tightened its jaw, and the jerky shattered. He reached for it as it chewed. You're a good dog too, aren't you? His hand pressed against the side of its head. What is he doing? Demanded a deep voice, resounding from all around him. Tibs tensed in surprise, and the dog whined. I think that's called petting, Stowe answered uncertainly. I know what it's called, the voice replied angrily. How isn't it tearing him apart? Is this another one of the ways you're being soft on these people? I'm not being soft on anyone, Stowe replied defensively. I don't know why he can do that. It's not like I can ask him, is it? Tibs forced his hand to relax, and he rubbed the dog's neck as it licked the pieces off the ground. Stowe, Kenny said, a voice far more deferential than Tibs had ever heard her. Where did you take the template for the dogs? They aren't something that died within your range. From that human who patrols with a bunch of them. She spent enough time in the field before the door that I was able to get the sense of how one of them was made. Took a while to make a copy that was able to breathe. I didn't want those to be animated the way the BBs are. I wanted them. Get on with it, the voice demanded. Well, when that one worked the way I wanted it to, I made more, playing around with how they looked, the way I do with golem people. I set them to roam the floor. How was there another voice? It had to be why Stowe and Ganny didn't want him to talk to them, which meant they didn't know about what he could do. which meant they it had to be why Stowe and Genny didn't want him to talk to them, which meant that this new person didn't know about what he could do. What worried Tibs was how angry Stowe at Stowe they seemed to be. He wanted to tell them Stowe wasn't soft on anyone. He'd taken a lot of them. He'd eaten a lot of them. But now he was certain Stowe was here. Took another piece of jerky and offered it to the dog when it had licked the ground clean of them. Okay, hopefully this was going to work. Do you guys think there's going to be something to help with the sickness? He asked, rubbing the dog's head as it ate. Does it even know what's going on? Does it even know what's going on? Jekyll asked, and Tibs winced at directness. What's wrong with the town? Stowe asked. That doesn't concern you, the voice replied sharply. That's where the runners come from, Stowe said. If they're sick, I need to take that into account, and no, you don't. The reply was more snarl than words. Tibbs had to forcefully ignore what his friends were saying in favor of Stowe's conversation. I'm not here to just kill them, Stowe snapped. Genny made that clear when, after some of them nearly killed me and I was lashing out at the rest. You aren't allowed to make a floor any harder than the appropriate runner for it can handle. If they brave it while not at their best, that isn't your responsibility. You've gone there, Stowe insisted. How are they? Are they too weak for my floors? The voice had gone into Craggle Rock? Who were they? Wasn't it Tibs? Wasn't Tibs the only person who could hear a dungeon? Or at least as far as Genny knew, as well as Val and Crowden. Your floors are perfectly adequate, the voice replied dismissively. Genny, how long has this been going on? Stowe asked. Weeks, the voice replied, annoyed. Is that a lot? Stowe asked. Time is something Stowe has trouble with, Genny said, as a huff sounded. It's very much a them thing, and it's never all that important to him. What? What did Genny mean? Why emphasize it? She'd never really put the runners as the outsiders, plural. The tone implied. In fact, the only time Tibs had heard her use it was... The voice was them? The them? Genny kept using to keep Stowe from breaking the rules? The them? Stowe kept scoffing at, that Tibs thought even Genny had been doubting they were real the last time she'd brought them up. The them was here, and by the tone, do not push me, Stone Mountain Crevice. Okay, my patience is more certainly finite. And comments, they were judging Stowe. Were they the secret he and Cumdar had sensed about the town? The dog whined. Tibs reached into his pouch, but it was empty. Sorry, boy, I don't have any more. It canted its head as Tibs stood. I guess this is where we go back to you being a dungeon creature, I guess. Whoa. Okay, so I can remove this. This is where we go back to you being a dungeon creature, I guess. He took careful steps back, not taking his eyes off it. It remained relaxed, but he wasn't sure if that meant anything. He'd seen how Serba's dog tensed when they were about to attack a criminal. She set them on, but this was a dungeon creature. What is it waiting for? The them demanded. I don't know, Stowe answered, perplexed. Tell it to attack. I can't. It's part of you. I can't. Stowe snapped. It's part of you, the them replied. Everything here does what you want them to. They would, Stowe replied angrily, if someone hadn't forced me to cut all ties to the creatures I made after he caught me in the third floor boss kicking runners around. Now, the creatures are independent. You want me to be able to control some of them? I'm going to have to remake them just like I had to remake the Golem people for this team's run. So I'd have enough. Okay, these are so that there's no comma here. So I'd have enough essence to make that fog you ordered me put on that one so he'd be blinded. Yeah, let me put on that one so he'd be blinded. Thank you, Stowe, for the explanation. Are you going to change the rules on me because you aren't happy with what they cause? Stowe demanded. Is that what rules are? They're here to keep me from doing things you don't want? So, Tibs asked the dog, what's it going to be? If you don't attack, I'll bring you more jerky on my next run. Is he? The them seem at a loss. Offering a bribe? Can it remember him? Kenny asked. Does it understand him? The them demanded, getting angry. How should I know? Stowe replied, exasperated. You watch what happened just like I did, so you tell me. I didn't give it the ability to understand the words they use, but there's clearly something I don't understand about the animal I made it from, and Ganny, I also don't know that. It's not like the rattlings and bunnylings. Those I made with specific instruction on how to imitate how people work. The dogs, I only adjusted enough they could work inside me. I mean, unless one of the runners kills it, I don't have a reason to remake it, so maybe? They are definitely more clever than I thought. The dog slowly turned its head and growled. Hey, I stayed right here, Jekyll protested. It snorted, turned, and ran off. Okay, he demanded. What in the abyss was that? Maybe you're about to get your answer, Stowe said. Tibs shrugged. It's a dog? I figured I had nothing to lose by being nice. He wasn't telling them anything if he could help it. You could have lost a hand, Don said. At the very least, that was risky. Tibs shrugged again. I was ready to suffuse myself with earth if I had to. I'm not scared of them the way Jekyll is, Mess said, but I think that was almost Jekyll's stupid level. Way more stupid than that, the fighter protested. I know better than to go towards one of those things. Are you sure there wasn't more going on? Don asked. For a time, it looked like you weren't even aware we were talking. Tibs smiled. You could say I was listening to the dog. I knew it! Jekyll exclaimed. It's all those essences you have. They let you do stuff to them, like making them like you. He turned and headed the opposite direction the dog had run into. I don't make them do anything, he called after the fighter, then followed him at a leisurely pace, the sorcerer at his side. What were you talking about? The sickness. Your question about if we'd find anything about that could help made me theorize about such a thing. About what such a thing would have to do. And what's that? Well, this is just a theory. I can't know if it would work since all I have to work from is what I can see of the sickness effect, and even the clerics don't know the cause. It would have to be something that either prevents the drain of life or somehow replenishes it. I don't know if you're aware of it, but Jekyll's man had something that's been keeping the sickness at bay. An heirloom, Don added when Tib's eyes widened with fear. I know about it because I helped adjust it, so adjust it to do more than simply slow the sickness. The ring lacks a way to efficiently pull the essence out. The essence to efficient lacks a way to efficiently pull the essence he loses to the lacks a way to efficiently Okay. Pull the essence from around it to balance what he loses to the sickness. So whatever we find would have to be something that came with its own reserve as well as a faster recharge. Or, and here I'm not even sure if it's possible. I'm not even sure if this is possible, but a way to convert essences around us to the one appropriate to helping the people. Don fell into silent thought. We'd have to be extremely lucky to find such a thing, such an item, he finally said with a defeated sigh. And, as you're fond of reminding us, Tibbs, luck isn't a thing. And that concludes chapter 89 of Breaking Step. If you are enjoying this, please leave a like. If you want to know when the next chapter is going to be up, subscribe, hit the bell. If you want to read the story, as it is up on Royal Road for free. If you want to read ahead of Royal Road and support me in the process, that is on my Patreon, where we are about 20 chapters ahead. If you want to listen to these live, it's every Tuesday morning, 8 a.m. Eastern Time on Twitch. The links are in the notes, and with that, I shall wish you a good day.